Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Newton Town Council regular meeting for March 9th, 2026. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ready to have a roll call?
Mr. Coos.
Here.
Mrs. Diglio.
Here.
Mrs. Teets.
Here.
Mrs. Lafoi. Here. Mayor Dixon.
Here. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this regular meeting was given to the two newspapers of record and posted on the town's website and the official bulletin board. Next up, we have the approval of minutes, the February 9th, 2026 regular meeting. Does anybody have any comments or corrections? All right. If not, then I will take a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the February 9th, 2026 regular meeting.
Second.
The motion from Deputy Mayor Diglio and a second from Councilwoman Lafoi. Roll call.
Mr. Coos.
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio.
Yes.
Mrs. Teets.
Yes.
Mrs. Lafoi.
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes. Next, we have the February 9th, 2026 executive session. There's no comments or amendments. I will take a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the February 9th, 2026 executive session.
I could second the February 9th executive session.
Motion from Deputy Mayor Diglio and a second from Councilwoman Teets. Roll call.
Mr. Coos.
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio.
Yes.
Mrs. Teets.
Yes.
Mrs. Lafoi.
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes. Finally, we have the February 23rd, 2026 regular meeting. Does anybody have any amendments or comments? All right, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Coos.
Yes. Oh,
Sorry.
Yes, I was ready to appeal.
Would you like to make the motion?
You guys on your toes.
All right.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Coos and a second from Councilwoman Lafoi. Roll call.
Mr. Coos.
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio.
Yes.
Mrs. Teets.
Yes.
Mrs. Lafoi.
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes. All right, moving on. At this point in the meeting, the town council welcomes comments from any member of the public on any topic. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit the opportunity for anyone who wishes to be heard, speakers are asked to take one turn at the microphone and please limit their comments to 3 minutes. The clerk will keep time. If reading from a prepared statement, please provide a copy and email a copy to the clerk's office after making your comments so it may be properly reflected in the minutes. Council may choose to comment after the entire public portion has concluded. Please identify yourself and spell your last name for the record. We'll start in person. Seeing none, do we have any on Zoom?
No raised hands, Mayor.
All right. We'll close that portion of the meeting and move on to council manager reports. Mr. Russo.
Thank you, Mayor. Just some information from our favorite municipal recycling coordinator, Deb Danielson. I'll read this into the record. Permits for the May 2nd, 2026 bulk collection are now on sale. Cost is $50. We're also pleased to offer free paper shredding, waste fluid collection, and tire recycling for residents. These services are provided at no cost as they are fully offset by the tonnage grant. This will occur at the Newton Recycling Center from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Disbursement of 5-gallon food waste collection kits to the first 100 residents, so stand online now. Comprehensive details are posted on our website under the recycling section and can also be found on our Facebook page titled Newton NJ Recycling Information. Next week, we will be installing an all-weather information board at the center featuring flyers and details about every commodity we collect and recycle. We hope this visual display will give residents easy, hands-on access to recycling information and encourage them to recycle more of their household waste. So that's from Deb. Second item, Mayor, if I'll ask Jessica to come up next to Mr. Ferry. You all received a copy of a letter that Jessica and I worked on that I'd like to send to our favorite Lieutenant Governor, Dr. Caldwell, when I see him this week. I've been brainstorming since the budget meeting about ways to help the town financially, and this is something that I've always contemplated and never really pursued, and I think this might be the year that we need to throw the Hail Mary pass into the end zone. So I'd like permission to send this to him this week and then also do a council resolution on the 23rd. So I won't refer to the first couple paragraphs, just gives a little bit of background on Newton, which obviously he's familiar with. But some of the benefits to a UEZ designation, stimulation of private investment and business growth. Obviously, there's a sales tax advantage. The tax rate gets reduced in half, improves competitiveness for retail, dining, arts, and service sector businesses. There's also incentives to attract investment, adaptive reuse or underutilized properties, and new small business starts. Page 2 of the letter, job creation and workforce development. UEZ eligibility expands access to workforce training grants, on-the-job hiring subsidies, and placement assistance, which would be great for, hospitality positions, entry level, light service jobs, which are pretty common in our economy. And that would stop commuter leakage to other communities and counties. Catalyze brownfield underutilized site development, complement state and federal remediation and financing programs, which helps make redevelopment more financially feasible. Strengthen the downtown and tourism economy. Obviously, we have the historic downtown courthouse area, cultural events, and this would help provide incentives to support complementary hospitality and arts enterprises, boosting year-round visitors. Expand municipal and regional tax base sustainably. Short-term tax incentives are designed to spur long-term growth, so that would be helpful. Support small businesses and entrepreneurs. Things like low-interest loans, technical assistance, facade and interior improvement grants, and marketing support. And alignment with our planning goals and the fact that we have constrained budgets. So this would help with our master plan goals for downtown vibrancy, mixed-use development, and housing without large-scale municipal capital outlays to help us leverage private and state funds. And Jessica and I believe we would be a strong candidate because of our compact, walkable, historic downtown, underutilized commercial properties, the fact that we're in a regional position as the county seat, and we would benefit quickly. There are 32 active in 37 municipalities. There's no designated UEZ in the northwestern corner of the state. So we believe the designation would provide proven flexible tools to accelerate revitalization, support small businesses, create jobs, and expand the tax base. I would like to give Dr. Caldwell this letter this week when I see him, and then I would have a resolution for you all on the 23rd. And I would send this to the 24th Legislative District. And then the resolution I would send to our legislators. I already reached out to their office to let them know we were discussing it. And then I would reach out to Senator Bucco and some of the people that I'm familiar with, and have relationships with, just to let them know, Assemblywoman Sweeney was here, right, a few Fridays ago. I think there's some people that would support Newton's application for this program, and I think it's kind of long overdue, and it's something that would be beneficial to the community. But obviously, before I launch this, I wanted to bring it up tonight, and then also ask Jessica if she can kind of give us her perspective on the program, since she's, familiar with it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it would be a real benefit to the community. And I think the state, from the perspective that most of the areas that are designated right now are urban. There is one in Phillipsburg, which is in Warren County, but other than that, it's mostly along, the urban corridors in the Jersey City area, and then some in South Jersey. So I think that from a statewide perspective, providing a different location, sort of spreading the benefits out, throughout the state, in one area that's not paid a lot of attention to in Sussex County. And there's actually nothing in Morris County as well. So we're really, kind of vacant in this area in terms of that type of incentive. And then Newton, as a regional town center, designated under the state plan, and having worked with DCA and state planning, as well as other entities in the state since the late 90s, I think is well positioned to be perhaps the first, guinea pig to be a UEZ outside of the larger urban areas. And then also, we do have but a couple of, low-income census tracts that, particularly around the high rise and the areas where we've been getting community development block grants, I think that help to provide for the need and necessity and the correlation between needing some community development assistance and tax benefit assistance. I think the benefits, like Tom said, are really strong with the cutting in half of the sales tax. There's also tax-free purchases for businesses when you're purchasing things like from a commercial standpoint for your own business. And then there's also the tax incentives for hiring is up to $5,000 tax credit per new employee per year. And there's also the potential for manufacturing facilities, which we have a few of, we might think of, to get a break from the energy taxes. So that could be huge for something like Thor Labs and help assist them to grow even more. So I think it would be, the town of Newton, it would be very beneficial to the town. And I see reasons why I think it would also benefit from a state perspective.
Yeah, and just to piggyback, I'll just read real quick the list, and then there's one other point I should add. Asbury Park, Bayonne, Bridgeton, Camden, Carteret, East Orange, Elizabeth, Gloucester City, Gutenberg, Hillside, Irvington, Jersey City, Kearney, Lakewood, Long Branch, Millville, Mount Holly, Newark, New Brunswick, North Bergen, North Wildwood, Orange, Passaic, Patterson, Pemberton, Perth Amboy, Phillipsburg, Plainfield, Pleasantville, Roselle, Trenton, Union City, Vineland, West New York, West Wildwood, Wildwood Crest, Wildwood City. Those are the 37. The other point is at some point our NPP program will sunset. So I'm trying to get ahead of that too, right? Because at some point, we've done some interesting things, but that potentially goes away. And so we don't want to lose any type of momentum because that program goes away. So I just think this is, an interesting and creative opportunity. I'm happy to have the conversation with him this week when I see him, but I just think if the council's okay with the approach, doing the resolution, obviously we have our favorite county commissioner here. We could ask maybe the county to back us up. I think we have a chance.
So I remember when Lieutenant Governor Caldwell was not Lieutenant Governor Caldwell and came and did a presentation before the council on exactly this. And I don't recall exactly what year that was, Tom, but you could tell me.
It's been about 4 years now.
I was mayor.
At the time that there were not 37, right?
Well,
I mean,
his approach was, not to interrupt, but it was
Yeah.
the opportunity zone. So he had his twist on it through FDU
right,
and the School of Business that he was trying to leverage. So,
right,
and now he's in charge of the Business Action Center and a bunch of other things as Secretary of State.
yeah.
So-
So I feel like we had some consensus around that time when he came to do a presentation, and then then he quickly changed from FDU to
Senator.
seminary, and it kind of fell off with the other priorities that we were talking about. So my question is, so I actually got to benefit from this. Long story short, I was buying appliances, and the company that we were buying them from said, if you go to our store in this town, which happened to be in a UEZ, you will pay half of the taxes on your appliance purchase. And it was significant, right? So to us, it was worth the drive. So I had to, of course, inquire as to well, why? And do you do that for customers normally? And they were like, well, it's a really good incentive for us as a business to encourage people to, on special large purchases, to go and get that tax benefit. Like, why wouldn't you do that if it's only a 25-minute drive from here, kind of a thing? So the business was promoting it, right, to their customers. And I feel like particularly some of our businesses that might have either big buying power or might be able to take advantage of the program, it's could look at it as a win-win, right? So you've outlined Tom and Jessica in this message, or in this memo to him, all of the benefits. What's the downside?
I don't really know of any downside. I mean,
Is it perception, perhaps?
there may be, there could be that there's something, more of an urban type of situation, or that there's, downtrodden, it's more downtrodden or something like that. But I think I think those that would find out wouldn't find out oh, it's a UEZ. I think that's more people who are in the know about what UEZs are. And then you would just find out kind of like you did, hey, we have this tax incentive, if you purchase, or you could even promote it in a different way. It doesn't have to be we're an urban enterprise zone, but it could be, we have 50% sales tax breaks and on our businesses on Spring Street, or what have you. So I think there are ways to promote it, maybe overcome if there's a stigma attached to that, but
No, it was a leading question and you walked right into it. Thank you. Because that is exactly the second part of my experience was that how it was presented to me. When I was asking the whys, because I wanted to know, even though I kind of knew back my, like, well, if you go to that city, they, have that situation set up because it's like more of an urban center. Like, and I was like, wait, you just started with, here's all the positive reasons, and then you're telling me to go because of your perception of why this particular municipality has it.
Mhm.
Right? And so we've done such, I think, Tom, last 18 years, previous councils, this council, we've been trying so hard to combat stigmas that are not even rooted in reality, right?
Right.
Streets are unsafe, there's no parking, I could go on and on, right? But it's all gonna come back to messaging. Like, I agree that I think there's more positive attributes and positive things that come out of it than negative, but I think it's gonna come down to messaging, like why Newton? Because I don't wanna perpetuate this narrative that Newton is other than the other 23 municipalities in the county, right? We just spent a summer, I'm probably a little more sensitive to this, right, as everybody else is, and we just spent a summer combating all of the negative rhetoric around the town of Newton.
Mhm.
That I would just not want to, we just have to be mindful of how this is rolled out as an economic benefit, as an economic potential stimulation for the properties that are areas in need of redevelopment that don't have any bites right now. I'm glad that Commissioner Henderson is here because as the county seat, they have to be a partner in the positive attributes of such a program. Of course, the 24th legislative district and others. Assemblyman Ganamort is talking about his whole platform is rooted in small businesses, towns, the things that the towns can control and what impacts them. And so I just think that I'm in support. I just think it's gonna have to come down, Tom, and everybody else, like messaging about the whys, because Newton gets the unfair brunt of things unnecessarily oftentimes, and I wouldn't want this to be one more thing.
And I-
Agreed, but there's also the opportunity to have the dialogue and the narrative, and after the heels of the budget meeting, people know the tax increase is coming, and I think it's incumbent on us when they say, okay, the increase is, and that's a lot of money, what are you doing too, is like the next question. And if we're not laying off staff and we're not raising this, or we're not doing, like we're kind of locked into where we're at, I think it's incumbent on us to say, we are trying every tool that is at our disposal. And remember, there's no guarantee it would even get approved.
Sure, of
It's gotta go
course.
through the legislature and signed by the governor, but
We have a good case. I mean,
yeah, I think we have a good case. We're the city in the country, 30% of the properties are exempt. That's in the letter. I don't know of another community that has that kind of a responsibility/burden, where a third of the properties are exempt. So you're all paying for the privilege of having those 30% exempts. And, we keep having that discussion and dialogue every year. And at some point, the woe is me has to turn into, no, this is an opportunity. We support commerce and business in the community, and we support entrepreneurs, and we want to encourage them to do more with their businesses. And these are the types of programs that give them opportunity to be successful. And should want to add to that. I'd rather leverage it as an opportunity, but yeah, because it's urban enterprise zone, it's not enterprise zone.
And the
I
other
get
thing
it.
too is I don't want to discount or diminish the relationship that you have with Lieutenant Governor. And so I'd rather be doing this while Tom's in that seat than some other time down the road. Because again, I think you make a case, you'll have FaceTime with him. He's been to Newton, he's sat where Jessica is sitting. And if there was a time to do it, this would be the time to do it. The only thing I think that in addition to whatever you said you were going to add to this, Tom, is a CC to the county commissioners.
Yeah, and I think that having had this conversation enough to get the designation, which I think it would be great. To just know that ahead of it, like let's set up messaging and even, provide a handout to businesses that participate to say, this is how you explain to your customers what this program is and make it more of a positive than a negative, so I think we could get out in front of the messaging part of it now that we're aware and that you brought it forward.
Yeah, and I think that's always been the case. I think when anytime we have a big program, whether it was with the reval or whatever, is to get ahead of the messaging.
So one of the themes that I raised during budget hearings, starting to maybe look a little more closely on programs that we're initiating and their ROI, I think that it is important to acknowledge that this program does come with a cost. It's not just we get a designation, there's a statutorily required UEZ coordinator that the town has to designate to oversee this program. And in discussing, personnel costs and looking for opportunities to consolidate, well, I think one question that would need to be explored is whether or not there is, manpower bandwidth presently, and if there is, are we offsetting anything? Do we need to increase personnel to do this? And if so, is there a trade-off for other work being assigned? Or does it increase work to the point where there's additional expenses? And if there are, is there an equitable ROI that we're going to acquire in the long run? I think that for all of the things that have been mentioned previously, it's a fantastic opportunity. But this is the little asterisk that I think we just need to have in the back of our heads as we move forward, because there are municipalities that have been designated as UEZ or have had UEZ designations that have taken the program and really run with it and really made it an opportunity for their community. But there are other municipalities that have received UEZ designation that really looked at it and said, hey, this is a great tax break. We get half of our sales tax written off in the zone. And that was kind of the end of it. And if we're really going to take this opportunity and do with it what it's intended to do, there is going to be some effort on the municipality to build the program as we were discussing, which again does have a cost associated with it. So it is something just to consider in the aggregate of looking at this.
Yeah, I think there's an administrative aspect because from what I've seen is businesses have to register in order to get the benefits. So someone has to kind of be working to get the businesses signed up. And like, if you think about Spring Street, there's probably, a little more reaching out than, there would be with the smaller, kind of micro businesses that might be up there versus the larger ones that might have more administrative capacity. So
And
So,
not
yeah, that's a
necessarily,
good
not necessarily
consideration.
to, discount what Kimberly Williams does with community development, but, I think this kind of program really has an opportunity or would be best implemented almost as if Newton opened up its own little BAC to help manage this program and make sure that the businesses that were going to be qualified with UEZ designation knew how to do what they needed to do in order to take advantage of everything. But again, there is an administrative angle to this that does have a cost associated.
But that was an important point. The businesses know what they have to do. We need to get out there and make sure they know what they do, because otherwise this won't be successful if they don't know what they have to do. So we have to make sure we hit
Right,
that.
but on our end, we need to have a who and a how
Sure.
to get to that.
Absolutely.
Presentation.
And going back to, I think you made it either at the budget meeting or the week before that, to possibly looking to, putting something in place that, kind of forces, for lack of a better word, the storefronts, not to remain vacant and, so here's building owners, we want you to, open a business. And now we have this that can help you possibly, and, that will hopefully draw more attention to Spring Street, more desired locations for businesses.
And Michelle, with that, one of the elements that Tom mentioned was, the opportunity for facade grants with this program. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that the sales tax revenue that's generated through the UAZ, even though it's discounted, goes back to the municipality into like a UAZ fund or UEZ fund that we can then use to implement facade grants.
And then the only other thought that came to mind was, not that we need to include it in the letter, but like the college, right? So the college, they they've got the culinary program and they're, got small engines and diesel, whatever, mechanics stuff I don't understand. And I don't understand the cooking either. And but that's just, more like partnering and more benefits to, the reasons why. And Jessica, you mentioned, like manufacturing and stuff, right? So, the college is doing their part. If we do our part, it's a good joint venture, like partnership.
And the whole idea is as you grow more businesses and as the businesses grow, you're growing the tax base as well, right? And that's the whole idea, is to supplement that, try to get a broader tax base to supplement the 30% loss that you have.
I mean, I don't see, doesn't hurt to submit, right?
I mean, I think this would be a good problem to have, to solve all these problems. If we got the designation, I mean, honestly, it's probably a little bit of a long shot, but I think, you got to try. You never get a yes unless you try. And Tom's always good at that, reaching out and working on innovative ideas. So I think it's a great idea.
Anybody else have any comments or questions?
I have one question.
Okay.
Okay. Knowing what we're going through in the agenda for affordable housing, will this give the affordable housing more ability to demand more low-income housing in the town, which we only have 3 square miles and most of us is built up?
There's not really any basis for why it would increase the affordable housing obligation the way that it was formulated this last time. There was actually an income aspect to the obligation, but there wasn't anything about any kind of designations. So.
All right, so I'll launch the letter this week, and
All right.
we'll put together a resolution for the 23rd.
All right,
Thank you
sounds
for
good.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right,
That's all I have.
moving on then. Councilman Coos.
Hey, the only thing I'd like to mention is that I would certainly like to tip my hat for, I don't know if there's some Irish equivalent, to all of those who had their hand in the planning and delivery of the St. Patrick's Day Parade. I think that in my number of years that I'm getting to the point I don't want to mention living in this town, I think this is probably the best, or this was rather the best St. Patrick's Day Parade that I have seen in my time. And it was definitely a job well done. So thank you to everyone involved.
Councilwoman LaFois.
Yes, so I had the opportunity to attend the Health and Wellness Seminar on March 2nd. No, what was the date? Whatever the date was, last Friday, the Friday before last, 28th,
Yeah.
27th, on February 27th. So first of all, it was great to see so many people turn out for it. Secondly, Dr. Assemblywoman Sweeney did a great job. I mean, a lot of people were taking pictures of the slides, even though we got them later, asking good questions. I think we're personally thinking about, some of the very logical things that she said. I was trying to get my 5 vegetables a day in, even on vacation last week, because she said that was the one thing. So
Did you get the happy hour in?
well, I did lots of happy hours. I was on vacation, not the kind that she was talking about. So, I think these conversations about the whole wellness program started, GP like a couple of years ago, Michelle. And I know that we haven't really been able to avail of the full like mayor's wellness program throughout the state. But I think, Tom, what you've been able to accomplish with these presentations and others that you've been doing over the last couple of years has really, working with Jennifer Dodd and a bunch of things, has really added value. Hopefully the staff see that as well. So thanks for setting that up. Thanks for always including us. And I think that Kat did send the presentation around. So just want to make mention of that. And then yes, unfortunately, I was not able to be here at the parade, but I saw lots of posts on social media and lots of green around the town of Newton. So fire department, Michelle, Sandy in years past, I know there was Michelle, because you and I were messaging, you were up late Friday and up early Saturday and DPW and everybody else. So it was a great job. Thank you for doing that. We have a lot of events coming up the next several weeks for our seniors, and we've got senior luncheon and Easter egg hunts and all those kinds of things coming up. So spring has sprung despite the colder weather that still might be coming, but lots to do in the town of Newton, lots of fun activities, traditional fun activities that we have coming up. So thanks to everybody who's involved in all the planning or on the boards and commissions that are making that all happen. It's much appreciated. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Teets.
Yeah, so I have some, and thanks for the nice comments about St. Patrick's Day. Obviously, I want to thank all the volunteers, the sponsors, and the participants for taking part in this annual Sussex County St. Patrick's Day Parade. A special thanks, I've said it before, but to Jason Miller. This would not happen without Jason. He really, I think he could plan a parade in his sleep. Might have put him up to that this year due to the weather that we were having during, prime planning time. And if you know his job, he didn't work like 9 to 5 hours this winter. So really want to thank him. Thank the Criminal Justice Program, the Criminal Justice Club up at the college. They were a huge partner this year and volunteered the morning of. They were helping with parking the cars and getting the parade route set up. And also new this year was the Harmony Lodge in Andover Township. And they also sent many volunteers to help. So both of those organizations I appreciate. And then obviously Newton Police Department, the guys were all there on Saturday, did a wonderful job keeping everybody safe. And special thanks to Lieutenant. He attended our parade committee meetings and really took our suggestions. And it worked out beautifully. To the DPW staff, Adam, I think I have Adam Vo now on speed dial, and the guys that showed up on Saturday, Tommy Strawway, Adam Armstrong, Brendan Chamber, and Dylan Fitzgerald, they could not have been nicer or more helpful. And, I know it's an inconvenience to block off the street. I think it's time well spent having traffic diverted for a little bit. The crowds were really good, and the DPW, swept the road and got everybody off really quickly. So that's a good sign. Newton First Aid Squad, thank you for, I know you guys have have to bring up the rear of the parade, but, I appreciate all the members that you had that day, and it shows, a good leadership on your part, having, every rig that you have in the parade and all the participants there to march. So nice showing there. And to the town staff, like Kat Alcock for helping me with flyers, Terry and Helen for walking, and Helen, your children, for carrying the signs and I think throwing candy. So, and some others, Jenda, Danielle Finkel, Kimberly, everyone was a big help. And again, kudos to Wally Chadwick for the senior shuttle and dealing with some of my last minute requests as well as to keep everybody happy and moving. And also, thank you for attending, and I hope you had fun that day. And we'll throw candy again sometime soon. And then just moving forward, I know there was a discussion before, so I think we're set on the Memorial Day Parade, or the reason behind the Memorial Day Parade this year. So we just have to get that communicated. And then I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Diglio.
Actually, I want to thank you, Michelle, taking over the St. Patrick's Day Parade. It was very nice being able to march in it with you, actually.
Thank you.
You handed out candy.
I watched the video. I could see you smiling and waving, so.
I actually watched the whole video, thanks to Kimberly filming it, and actually enjoyed it a second time watching it. So,
Okay.
thank you very much for that. And, other than that, senior program is meeting this Wednesday, I believe, the prime time. And so that's always at 12:30 over at the Mill Street. So looking forward to, I know we met actually last week, we're meeting next week, okay. But, other than that, there's really not too much I have to say. Again, thank you, though.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I'm gonna start. I don't know, everybody got their issue of NJ municipalities here. There is an article on homelessness and it did kind of highlight Newton's efforts. So if everybody's take a look at that and see that. On February 26th, I attended the New Jersey Conference of Mayors Winter Summit. The event was titled The Mayor's Playbook for Economic Growth in New Jersey. There were several panels that dealt with topics from start of a project, the concept and to construction, partnerships between the private sector and building trades, coordination for site review, permitting, and project approvals, and then economic development and revitalization. Lieutenant Governor Caldwell was actually there. He gave the keynote address. Senator Bucco, Senator Panaccio, and Speaker Coughlin were also there and spoke. It was interesting to see after some of the panels. Newton has already put some of these practices that they suggest in place. So it's always good to see that, we're kind of ahead of the ball game there. But then also there's several takeaways that we could also try to incorporate into our efforts as well. I do want to again thank everybody who participated in the budget meeting last week, all our staff, professionals, and the public, and all the hard work that went into putting that budget together. And then lastly, today, I attended Congressman Gottheimer's 5th District Mayor's Day. There were several presentations from various state and federal officials regarding various grant and surplus opportunities. Some of the agencies that were present were the USDA, EPA, USDOT, DOJ, NJOEM, NJ Office of Homeland Security, among others. I thought the timing is great to remind us of all the opportunities that exist. So we could be on the lookout for the notice of financial opportunities when the grants open, whether it be for this year's budget or to look ahead for future budgets and projects that we have coming down the pike. And that's all I have for this evening. We have no unfinished business, so we move on to ordinances. We have the second reading and public hearing of ordinance 2026-5, an ordinance to amend, revise, and supplement chapter 320 entitled Zoning Form-Based Code, most notably section 320-19 entitled Special District 9, Plan Neighborhood Development Zone. I'll now open the hearing to the public.
Before, Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
For this ordinance 2026-5 and the next two, 2026-6 and 2026-7, a little bit different than normal procedure in terms of the second reading and adoption. We've opened this ordinance to the public. Before the hearing is closed, we do have a resolution corresponding to this ordinance, Resolution 111-2026. Which as stated, rejects the recommendation of the Town of Newton Land Use Board regarding this specific ordinance. As you're aware and the public's aware, under section 26 of the municipal land use law, when there is a type of ordinance like this in terms of zoning, it is referred to the land use board or the planning board, depending on what you have in your municipality. We have a land use board in the Town of Newton here. It's referred to that board under section 26 of the municipal land use law for a finding of consistency with the municipality's land use or master plan, excuse me. For this ordinance and for the next two ordinances, they were referred to the land use board, and the land use board came back with a report finding them to be inconsistent with the master plan. Pursuant to that same section of the statute, which is again section 26 of the municipal land use law, the governing body may disapprove of those recommendations, but it has to do so by a majority vote of the full membership of the governing body. And it must also state the reasons of why it's not accepting those recommendations from the land use board on the record. So before you close this ordinance's public hearing, I'd ask, if so inclined, since you have the resolution in front of you, I would ask that the resolution be motioned and seconded. And before there's roll call, then have the public hearing, close the public hearing, then roll call on the resolution, then roll call on the ordinance. That makes any sense. It's very different,
Obviously, we have a plan.
and we have, for the hearing, we have people to make comment.
Okay. So I'm gonna,
Step one was,
step one was the motion to introduce the resolution. So I'll take
Should, resolution 111-2026.
and I'll second.
a motion from Councilwoman LaFois and a second from Councilwoman Teets. Roll call. Vote.
Now we have the hearing.
Now we have the hearing.
Now, if anybody wants to make comment about the ordinance and the resolution in
both,
conjunction with the ordinance, they can make those comments.
All right. So we will open it.
No, none online, no raise hand.
Okay. Yeah, Jessica, do you have anything you'd like to?
Provide some background for the council, just about the process, sort of where we came from, and then talk a little bit about, I guess, the zone and the master plan. So as you know, the Fair Housing Act was amended in 2024, ending towards the end of the year. It established various deadlines for compliance with the round 4 of affordable housing in 2025 and now into 2026. We have a March 15th deadline to adopt an amended housing element and fair share plan and implementing ordinances for that plan. Last year on the 21st of May, we adopted, the planning board adopted the housing element and fair share plan. The council endorsed it and it was submitted to the dispute resolution program, which is the new program that replaced COA, that reviews affordable housing plans through the state and DCA and the Superior Court. We submitted that plan, which was prior to a June 30th deadline for submitting the plan to the dispute resolution program. Once the plan was uploaded to eCourts and available to the public, there was a deadline of August 31st for any interested parties to challenge the plan. That was sort of embedded in the statute that plans were able to be challenged by any interested party. So on August 30th of 2025, the town received a challenge from Fair Share Housing Center. And the challenge, I would say it was kind of a light challenge, but it did question the zoning within the housing element and fair share plan. And specifically the SD9 zone, since that's what we're having the public hearing on, it stated that the town should re-examine and amend the zoning to address more current development incentives. So one of the issues is that for Newton's housing element and fair share plan, while we look at on paper, we have a lot of zones that have been in place for many years. For instance, the SD9 has been in place since round 2, which is the 1987 to 1999 round. And with zoning, the town's obligation is to provide zoning that provides for a realistic opportunity for development. So what happens when you have a zone that's in place for 30 some odd years, people start to question whether there's actually a realistic opportunity. Now, whether there might be other reasons why the zone isn't developing, those can be questioned, but what the idea behind it and what we did during the 3rd round was we took a look at the zoning and said, how can we make it more enticing to developers? So we added a mixed use component on the frontage. The SD9 zone is, as you know, is essentially the Lentini Farm area next to the hospital. It was zoned in the 2008 master plan as an affordable housing inclusionary zone. It's been viewed as kind of an outlier mixed use neighborhood, potentially to support the hospital area, to provide for housing for employees, of the hospital and also just housing in general for the town. It's a 52-acre site. The zoning on that site for the third round was proposed to be 85%, 6 units to the acre, and 15% up to 12 units to the acre. So in order to incentivize potentially additional interest in developing the site, we propose to increase the density from 85% to 8 units to the acre and 15% to 20 units to the acre. This, the questioning from Fair Share Housing Center, you could say, we could have said, you know what, Fair Share, we're not going to change our zoning. And they could come back and say, well, that zone is unrealistic then because it hasn't developed over the last 40 years. Come up with another zone. And the issue in this is you're looking at 52 acres of vacant land. The only way you can zone land that's not vacant is to do a redevelopment area designation. So the other zones that we have in our plan are designated as redevelopment because they're pre-existing development. But you can't go to a developed piece of property and put a zone on it that's not redevelopment and say that's now an inclusionary zone that's realistic, because it's not likely necessarily to redevelop without a redevelopment area designation. So if we were looking for another development area to provide 300 plus units, we would have to designate another area in town as an area in need of redevelopment. So I guess that's the background and the reasoning behind the proposal to increase the density on the site. And also, as I said, the area was designated in the 2008 master plan as a mixed-use inclusionary zone. It was designated in the 2016 Housing Element and Fair Share Plan as a mixed-use inclusionary zone. And again, in the 2025 and 2026 now with this increased density. Looking at the densities, I know that Newton hasn't really had to deal with, I guess, challenges and issues related to affordable housing in the recent past. During the third round, a lot of communities, we went through Superior Court, but we didn't receive any challenges. Fair Share didn't intervene in our case. And I think we were the only one in the state that Fair Share didn't intervene. And I remember seeing attorneys from Fair Share and they would kind of laugh and go, I don't know what happened. I guess you had such a great plan or what have you that we just decided not to intervene. But it was an outlier. So we haven't really experienced this. And I would also say that in terms of densities, the densities in the fourth round have increased dramatically from what the densities being proposed in the third round. So all of our third round zones were in the 12 to 15 units to the acre. That was kind of a standard. Now I have communities that are in 45, 50 units to the acre. So I think when, Fair Share Housing Center and others are looking at these zones that are less than 20 acres, almost like a minimum standard for multifamily now. So pretty much across the board, whenever we had any zones that were from the third round going into the fourth round, Fair Share Housing Center asked for the densities to be increased on those zones to try to incentivize development, and particularly if they're less than 20 units to the acre. So that's, the background and reasoning behind it. And just as I said, I don't think that just simply from a density perspective, that suddenly makes it not consistent with the master plan. These zones have been in the plan since 2008. This actual zone has been inclusionary zone since the late 1980s, 1990s. It's been conceived of for development in this capacity. So I think that in all reality, although there were concerns at the planning board about density increases and how it might impact the community, I think those were concerns, but they're not, I don't think, translating into not being consistent with the master plan. I know that was their finding, but that's my recommendation to the council based on the resolutions that you overturn that finding and deem these to be to go ahead and approve them as ordinances. I would also say that if they're not approved, and these aren't adopted by March 15th, the town loses their immunity from builders remedy lawsuits. And we have not been in that position, I don't think ever. The town has been in compliance since prior rounds. Not that we have developers knocking down the door, but I mean, we've been in control of our own destiny all this time. I don't know why over something which I think is relatively minor that you would do this. Also, I would say that the increases are, I think, not necessarily going to yield anything in the near term. I mean, I think one of the greater issues is that we don't have anyone looking to develop any of these sites. We don't have any developers associated with any of these sites. So if we had them, there wouldn't be a concern about density unless the developer was saying they wanted more density. But Hicks Avenue has been zoned for 20 units the acre since 2014. And there's no development proposal there. So, I mean, although I would like to say that increasing density is going to result in development, it may or may not. I would say coming in round 5, we're going to have to reassess what's going on if we don't create units. I would think going forward that, we should look at requiring new redevelopment areas and to provide for affordable housing set aside so that you can try to make up for units as we go along. Because I don't think there's anywhere near any guarantees that any of these sites are going to develop.
Jessica, was this history and comprehensive background given to the planning board during their deliberations?
I don't know if it was. I mean, I think there was some discussions about, various aspects of it, but certainly this wasn't expected.
And was it overwhelming, the consensus to reject them and deem them not consistent with the master plan? Was that overwhelming from the planning board perspective, or was that split essentially?
I think it was a 5-0. Overwhelming.
There's only 5 members at the board at the time as well. 9-member board.
If I could maybe just for the I don't know what the right word is I'm looking for right now, but for the maybe consolidation of all these arguments and to read in any public who's watching this who hasn't necessarily followed the history of what's going on here or how we got to this place. So what we're dealing with right now is the Mount Laurel Doctrine, which requires the municipality to create realistic opportunities and zones for development, specifically through the lens of affordable housing. What we have right now is a conditional certificate of compliance with our proposals to functionally define where our own density requirements are going to be. And if we deviate from this, we not only open ourselves to builders risk lawsuits, we lose the ability to control density. That's right. And the courts have in precedent looked back at this and actually increased the density beyond what municipalities have set themselves and then rejected. So while we can look at this through a lens and say, yes, the density seems perhaps a little outrageous from a surface level view, it's certainly not as outrageous as it could be if we weren't to go through it. I think another opportunity or another task that we should accomplish is just maybe breaking down each of the rejection points one by one, just to kind of tease it out a little more. And if we're specifically talking about Special District 9 right now, the first arm of the inconsistency was that increasing permitted density at these locations, the impact of rural nature and character of the town. And I can look at that from an angle and say, okay, this may be inconsistent because it doesn't follow traditional transect zoning of the municipality, where you have your downtown core, which then breaks out into neighborhoods, which then transitions into a rural nature. However, as Mr. Deaney said, we are in a position where we have the ability to reject this with the explicit reason of being able to protect protect the town by defining our own affordability density, our own affordable housing density requirements or housing density requirements in this section. So we have, I think, as a governing body, a compelling reason in this line to reject it because there's something much worse that could be out there. On the second line, the board's concerned about the additional densities proposed, placing a burden on the municipal water and sewer infrastructure. So that in and of itself very well may make this an unrealistic area for development. And one thing that I haven't seen, at least to this point, and I could be wrong, may have been brought up during the land use meeting, is whether or not there was an infrastructure consistency or a capacity review to say, yes, we have water and sewer capacity in order to make this development occur. Because for our purposes, if that hasn't happened, or if we're questioning this at all, that might be a reason to pump the brakes here and say, maybe it isn't consistent because we don't have capacity. But that may have been addressed already, and I just don't know.
We don't have any indication that we have any constraints with sewer. And then to the first point, well, we do have the transect zoning and the graduated density. They're also within that what's called special districts,
Right.
where you consider other special issues. One of them was the need for an inclusionary zone. The other was to provide housing and potential mixed-use neighborhood commercial next to the hospital.
Right.
So that was designated as a special district in the master plan for that reason.
The third arm, fairly connected actually to the first arm. And, you know, in the third item, there is an allusion to, you know, underutilized property such as the county jail, but being able to go through a process to be able to identify or designate that as an opportunity for redevelopment or to use for housing purposes, I think puts us beyond, there's no way this is going to be accomplished within a week. And then puts it beyond that. I mean, I'm not knocking it as an idea. I'm just saying that the timeline just isn't there for that. And if we were to explore that option, we would then forego our ability to preserve our own density requirements or the writing of our own density requirements. And then, you know, it'd be out of our hands.
And that's a much more comprehensive project only because it's owned by the county,
It's
right?
ours.
So that brings a
Right,
whole
right.
nother level of negotiation. It's not just that we can go in and say, we're gonna designate this
Right.
as such because it's not
The
an
county's
area
not
that allows us to
Ours.
be able to do
The
that.
county's not even bound to our zoning requirements as it is.
Exactly.
And then the fourth arm refers to ordinance 2026-6, and if we're only entertaining SD9 right now, I'll hold that argument for the second until we get to that point. We can discuss why that is consistent or inconsistent when we get to that ordinance. But that's my pitch. Not necessarily saying that we're 100% consistent or inconsistent, but I think we're in a position where we can reject the inconsistency, at least as far as the transect goes with it being a special district, but then with the lack of any issue being brought up regarding sewer or water capacity right now, I think in order to protect the town, as strange as it might seem for those who look at this as a negative thing, by passing this, we're actually instituting some protections.
Great.
It's not an ideal situation for anyone. You know, we're handcuffed by what has been
point.
handed down through the courts through Mount Laurel, but this is the best outcome we can have in order to protect the town with what resources we have to protect the town.
But do we have the ability to protect the town? If the state housing is telling us that we have to do this, so many units per this. What actions can we take to reduce that if there's reasons to reduce it? We don't have any, right? So we're not really protecting because we don't have the ability to say, once we agree to this, units in, we're over 300 units on that property. We don't have the ability.
We're protecting it from being 20 per acre from becoming 200 per acre.
Right.
And the courts have done that before.
Right. And we get to designate the areas as opposed to them coming back. It's gonna be everywhere. Any development.
I mean, one of the things that we've tried to do in the town was, at least during the third round, and carried it forward to the fourth round. Now I'm kind of, but I think that we tried to keep it to designated zones rather than being a blanket mandatory set aside. I mean, that's your other option, is that any development has a mandatory set aside. Then you kind of open it up to where everything's an inclusionary zone almost. So, I mean, if you can avoid that, I say you should.
Yeah.
And I think you are protecting yourself by designating what areas are proposed for inclusionary versus just saying any development that happens now is going to be inclusionary. They're going to ask for inclusionary densities. Things start to get out of your hands. I mean, with respect to the jail property, I think it's absolutely correct, unless there was some kind of agreement with the county that they want to sell it and they want it to be developed. The town can't take any action, and we have a March 15th deadline. So that could be a future way potentially to replace some of these zones. But I would say if these zones don't develop during the fourth round, which is 10 years to 2036, then we will need replacement zones, or we'll have to relook at these again. I mean, I think a lot of these areas with the SD9, I haven't had any indication that the family that owns it has any interest in developing the site. So, if that really got drilled down into that they're not going to develop it in the next 10 years, then we would be looking for another site.
But
You
that's
know,
my
so-
concern. Newton is 3 square miles. Okay? Some of the property is under DEP protection, as we well know. Okay, so you can't do anything with them. So there's very, very limited space within the town of Newton to really develop, unless you want to start tearing down houses and buildings and start rebuilding those. I mean, there's very limited space. So at what point do we say there is no more? When does this stop? I mean, how many rounds have we been through? We've already satisfied round after round after round, and now they're putting more and more demands on us. At what point do we take a stand and say, we can't do this? We're not a New York City or a Newark, and we have very strict regulations. We're Highlands, we've got the Highlands Act up here. I mean, you've got a lot of different things that limit the ability of not just Newton, but other towns in the area because of these different things.
So Sandy, that's an option. We can absolutely do that. If it is the consensus of the council that we want to reject this and say, nope, we want to put 1 housing unit per acre, that is our prerogative. We can do that. The risk, though, is that they could be challenged in the courts, and the courts can come back and say, you guys wanted 20 per acre, but then you changed it to 1. Well, we're gonna decide that it actually has to be 200 per acre.
And to your point, Sandy, in to not do anything, what you just said, for example, a 9 Windsor that backs up to wooded property at the end of their cul-de-sac. If someone wanted to come in absent having any kind of designations, and let's say they wanted to tear that down and put in a 12 family, we couldn't say you couldn't do that if we didn't have the stopgaps in place by the measurements of the zonings that are set up, the transit zoning, the special districts, so on and so forth.
That
Then-
area you're talking about is under the nature preserve conservation.
I'm using it as an example.
Right, but
The
it can't
point
develop.
being is you have all single family houses that sit on the end of a cul-de-sac. Without having the protections in place, you could have somebody that comes in and says, I'm gonna tear down this property and I'm now gonna put 12 or 20 units on this tract of land.
And it's not just, the housing density as housing density. There are tax impacts to development like this, and there's an impact to the school district, significant potential for impact to the school district. And while on one hand, in one lens, it may look like we are increasing density requirements in order to, or we're increasing density requirements, which will then have an impact on the school district. The opposite, the alternative is I think way too risky for us to tolerate, because that 20 per acre density requirement again could be overruled by, or I'm sorry, if we don't institute that and we choose something lower and the courts come in and decide otherwise, that density requirement can be, exponentially increased, which would then have an even more significant impact upon the school district and the tax base that we have. It's again, not an optimal situation. You know, we have multiple angles we're looking at this. You know, in New Jersey, we have an affordable housing issue. In Newton, we have an affordable housing issue. We have people on the streets. The whole past summer, we looked at this and said, let's house these people, let's house these people. So affordable housing is fantastic, but we do need to be careful with it. I agree. I 100% agree that we're not overbuilding, we're not overdense, that we're not unfairly or inequitably affecting the school district. But the piece that needs to guide our decision tonight is what's the alternative if we don't do this, and is the alternative worse than just going through what we have the conditional compliance certificate for already? And I think that the alternative is way too risky and way worse than what we have, or what we're being forced in one hand, if I want to take your lens here, to do.
Forced.
Yeah.
Any other comments? All right,
Just check with the public again, I would see.
I will reopen it to the public. All right, seeing none, we will close that portion of the meeting.
Take a motion to close the public hearing.
Oh, take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Councilman Teets and a second from Councilman LaFois. Roll call.
Mr. Coos,
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio.
Mm,
This is
Abstain.
just,
We're just closing the hearing.
this is just the
Closing it, yes.
Mrs. Teets,
Yes,
Mrs. LaFois,
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes.
We could take a motion, Mr. Mayor, to adopt resolution 111-2026.
All right.
Mayor, I'll offer resolution 111-2026.
I will second.
I have a motion from Councilman LaFois and a second from Councilman Teets. Roll call.
Mr. Coos,
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio,
Abstain.
Mrs. Teets,
Yes,
Mrs. LaFois,
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes.
And then take a motion to adopt ordinance 2026-5.
Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
second.
Motion from Councilman LaFois and a second from Councilwoman Teets. Roll call.
Mr. Coos,
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio,
Abstain.
Mrs. Teets,
Yes,
Mrs. LaFois,
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes. All right, next up is ordinance 2026-6. Ordinance of the Town of Newton in the County of Sussex, New Jersey, adopting an amendment to the redevelopment plan for the Patterson Avenue redevelopment plan pursuant to local redevelopment and housing law, NJSA 40A:12A-1, etc. We will open the hearing to the public.
Again, Mr. Mayor, we also have a resolution corresponding to ordinance 2026-6, resolution 112-2026, a resolution rejecting the recommendation of the Town of Newton Land Use Board regarding the adoption of ordinance 2026-6. If we can have that at least moved and seconded, then we can continue with the public hearing.
I'll offer resolution, offering the
Offer resolution
112.
112.
Yes, I'll offer resolution 112-2026.
and I will second.
I have a motion from Councilman LaFois and a second from Councilman Teets. All right,
Discussion.
this is the,
I can
Patterson.
provide a little additional.
yeah, Jessica, if you want to go ahead.
So along with the SD9 zoning, the other challenge from Fair Share Housing Center noted that the town previously amended the various redevelopment areas that they have been in place for 10 to 15 years and requested that we re-examine and provide more current development incentives for the redevelopment areas, including Patterson Avenue. I would note that Patterson Avenue was designated as a redevelopment area in 2008. It was amended, it has been amended 3 times since then. It was amended in 2015 to go from 10 units the acre to, or 2020, sorry, to go from 10 units the acre to 15 units the acre. The initial redevelopment plan allowed single-family homes and duplexes, and the amendment allowed for townhouses. The current proposed amendment is to allow 20 units to the acre. There is no proposal to change the unit type, however. And I'd also note that the Patterson Avenue redevelopment plan was also in the 2008 master plan. It was in the 2016 housing element and fair share plan and the 2025 and 2026 housing element and fair share plan as an inclusionary zone.
So all the same principles that I discussed before stand. The arm 4, however, of the planning board's recommendations speaks specifically to Patterson Avenue, I believe. Just pull that document up real quickly. So yes, the board is concerned about environmental constraints at the Patterson Avenue redevelopment area, primarily stormwater management and groundwater, as well as potential instability, pose constraints to development on the site that are increased with greater densities. I certainly don't reject that as a concern. I think from anecdotal evidence, there's certainly groundwater that does stand during a storm. However, during any major development application, there's going to be a stormwater management plan that has to be delivered and approved by the professionals in order to have a development. So
Right.
while I completely agree that that is a concern and that's present,
Right.
I don't think that necessarily that's not germane to a zoning change. That's a development application. That's a planning board hearing for that development application that has to be addressed
Right.
specifically. And it's a good argument for a different time.
Right.
Again, at the planning board meeting, were there individual discussions on each of the areas, or was it just kind of a rejection of everything in its entirety? And I know Helen Humphrey is here as well, so.
Yeah, there was a discussion about this area in particular with respect to potential groundwater, underground lakes, underground water bodies. It is mentioned in the redevelopment plan itself that there are some steep slopes on the property. It's also mentioned, and every time we've met with developers on this site is like a bowl. And the issue is stormwater has to be pumped out of the site. And my suspicion is that when anyone looks into that too much further, the redevelopment plans stop. Because it's a difficult issue to deal with. Maybe it's a hurdle that they can't get over. So it's mentioned in the redevelopment plan as an issue. It would be something that would have to be dealt with at site plan or through a redevelopment process. We don't have any further information on the other environmental issues. They're not in the master plan. They haven't been studied. So while there are some concerns and individual knowledge about potentially some of these things, we don't have it laid out in any type of study or any direct knowledge of these issues.
So one question, sorry, speaking of, but maybe this is for Mr. Deanne. Would we be potentially facing a risk that if we were to designate this as a higher density location, that in the future, if the stormwater was identified to be a preventative issue for development on the site, that it would then actually remove this area as a site that's in compliance for affordable housing density purposes?
Potentially, council member, but it would have to be, brought up or challenged by Fair Share Housing or a developer to get it removed from the plan. But it's in the plan. It's in the plan right now.
Right. So I would say maybe the only caution there, since this is a potential risk, not necessarily in terms of whether we approve or don't, but in the future, if that is the case and it does go down that road, is there a quick alternative to replace that?
I think at that point, I have had communities where we've found out, for instance, there was flood hazard area and residential couldn't be developed where the town thought they could do an inclusionary development. and we had to find a replacement zone. I don't know that there would be any deadline for that, so that would be something I think that the town would have to figure out and look into. I imagine it would probably happen unless challenged by a developer during the 2036 when we do our new plan. If it was determined during that course of the 10 years, something came up that it was definitively shown not to be developable for what it's proposed for, then that zone would need to be replaced. But like, we don't have that knowledge at this point.
Right.
Actually, I do. I actually have a copy of the Army Corps engineering map that shows the cave system and the underground lake that sits under that property that we have known about. It has been brought up in previous discussions, and that underground lake is approximately 80 feet deep that we could measure because we ran out of tape. That was Ralph DeFreeze ran out of tape. I actually know where the entrances are to the underground cave and the underground lake, which sits about 40 feet below the surface of the ground. Okay, now you start putting that many units. How much blasting is going to be done? Because there was a lot of blasting done when they put the last development in. That has caused a lot of damage because we sit also on a fault line. Now, I am concerned about the damage to the homes that are there, because I know mine is one of them. I get a lot of cracks and things from settling still. But I'm concerned about sinkholes that could have come up, which already have come up. I know exactly where one is. When they wanted to put the addition on the school, they decided not to because of the underground lake and the aquifer that feeds the well that sits on Gardner. And I have a lot of concern about what can happen when you start trying to do the infrastructure for putting your lines in for sewer and water, because you're going to have to probably do some blasting because we sit on a combination of bedrock and slate. Slate, as everybody knows, only occurs when you've been underwater. Okay, and we have a lot of slate in the town of Newton. And the cave system is extensive. It goes in New Jersey alone, from Sussex all the way down to Warren County. And I've been in the caves right here in this town, and I've been in the caves just south of Hackettstown. So they are connected. I know people that have gone from Stillwater to Newton, from Lafayette, comes down here. The cave system is extremely extensive. So people need to be aware of that, because right now there are a lot of places that are dealing with sinkholes. We had a big issue not long ago on Route 80 last year. Phillipsburg now has had quite a few things just happening in Phillipsburg. There was just another one where whole half of a thing came down on a car that was parked on the street. Luckily, the house wasn't damaged, but the whole side property was. So I think we need to consider, when we're looking at something like this, the instability of the area. In the original maps back in the 1960s, where they put the development in, a lot of that area was swamp area, and it was designated as swamp, wetlands. How the developer actually got that through, I'm not 100% sure, because we were fighting it as neighbors, knowing that it was wetland.
Can I have a sidebar conversation? A moment?
So I am concerned about that.
I mean, I understand the concerns. I think at this point, it would be a study that would be done when a development is proposed. I mean, it's not it's been designated as a redevelopment area since 2008. And
Right.
while there are,
20 years later, we're now.
I don't know that putting 120 homes or 220 homes makes a difference from if it can't be built on, but there are 2 warehouses on the property now, as you know. I mean, I think from a zoning perspective, we don't have any indication this is not developable. I mean, I understand your concerns, but I don't have anything in front of me it's not in the master plan, it's not in the redevelopment plan, there's no studies.
And those concerns were never brought up in any of the other amendments, right? Like
No.
2011, 2015,
Never.
that never
Yeah.
that never was addressed, so.
Like
How
the
are we gonna bring it
report
up
that
now?
Bambi, like that you have, like who else is privy to that?
The DEP, there is an actual report from the DEP on it.
I meant from the
that was
town
done
to
when
do
we were
it,
doing the
like
well.
our
And we just,
plan.
yeah, we don't have it in the master plan. It hasn't been something that's been brought up to this
Right.
extreme before. So, I mean, we don't have a lot of information that something can't be built on 40 feet of bedrock that has water underlying it, until, you would have to do geotech studies on the site, to
Right.
determine that.
And that would be part of any development plan that comes forth anyways, right?
Yeah.
And if we reject it for that reason, aren't they gonna just in turn then make us find another area?
I mean, it is a redevelopment area, so the council has a lot of ability to work with the developer if a developer came forward to say, look, we have concerns, we want a geotech study as part of this development. That's something you could do as the council with your redevelopment agreement. So it's nice because you have more control as a redevelopment area than you would just regular zoning where you're kind of bound to the checklist items of whatever the checklist says, So, I mean, these could be fleshed out in the future. It's just, I don't know that we can address these concerns right now through the zoning process.
Sandy, what would be your suggestion?
I'm not quite sure what else we can do, to be quite honest. I do
Right.
know that when they wanted to do that last development, the neighbors were up in arms and they actually fought doing the development.
So that's the point, right? It has to go through the process
Mhm.
and the studies would have to be done, developer would have to come forth, they would have to go through the process for whoever to be able to speak up. But that's not now, right? For what we need to accomplish for tonight and to have introduced by March 15th. I mean, those are the stop gaps that can be addressed during the normal process if a development plan comes forth. Do you know what I mean?
And if I may add something, I don't know if it was talked about when I stepped out, but because this is in a redevelopment area, just note that if it ever is developed, there's going to be a developer's agreement
Mhm.
where you can specifically, and if you already talked about this, I apologize.
We covered all the details of
You
it.
really have great, under the law, under the redevelopment law, then you have a really great opportunity to really nail down exactly what you want in that agreement.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
More than we would have.
That would be the process,
Yeah.
at that point in time, to address some of what you've brought forth.
And just with being candid, Deputy Mayor pulled out because just being made aware that you do own property in this area.
Mhm. It's more than 200 feet from the property line that we're talking about. That's already been checked out.
That has been checked out.
By
I don't.
who does that?
I haven't checked it out. I don't know. I'm
Mhm.
just.
Oh, that was done from the
Being-
last development.
Do you plan on just so we can kind of? Do you plan on voting on this or abstaining? I would ask you to abstain, but you could do what you want. That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
So if there's any public comment? All right, I'll take a motion to close the hearing to the public.
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Councilwoman LaFois and a second from Councilwoman Teets. Roll call.
Mr. Coos,
Yes?
Mrs. Diglio? This is just closing the hearing.
Mhm. Okay, yes.
Mrs. Teets,
Yes.
Mrs. LaFois,
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes.
Now, I already think the last time you already have a motion and a second on the resolution, right?
Yeah.
It's pending, so you could just take the roll now.
Okay.
On the resolution instead of calling it again.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Coos,
Yes?
Mrs. Diglio,
No on the resolution.
Mrs. Teets,
Yes.
Mrs. LaFois,
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes. All right, next up is ordinance 20.
You have to
Oh,
act on.
Yep, okay. Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Sorry.
Okay, can I get a motion to act on ordinance 2026-6?
So moved.
And I'll second.
A motion from Councilwoman LaFois and a second from Councilwoman Teets. Roll call.
Mr. Coos,
Yes.
Mrs. Digley,
I am going to vote no.
Mrs. Teets,
Yes.
Mrs. LaFois,
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes. All right, now we're moving on to ordinance 2026-7. Ordinance of the Town of Newton and the County of Sussex, New Jersey, adopting an amendment to the redevelopment plan for Miriam Gateway redevelopment plan pursuant to local redevelopment and housing law NJSA 40A:12A-1, etc. I will open that hearing to the public. With that, we have resolution 113-26, resolution rejecting recommendation of the Town of Newton Land Use Board regarding the adoption of ordinance 2026-7.
Resolution 113-2026.
And I will second.
Motion from Councilwoman
We're
LaFleur.
gonna do, you gonna,
Oh, we're gonna do the open to the public first and then, yep, sorry.
We almost got it.
I almost had it.
Jessica, did you want to add anything else?
Just a little bit of background on just Miriam Gateway redevelopment area, since I think everything else has already been gone through. This is a 10-acre area. It was designated in November of 2010. It covers 3 sub areas. It's actually a rehabilitation area that we designated with a redevelopment plan as part of some concerns and incentives to try to redevelop areas around Thor Labs redevelopment area. So there are 3 kind of sub areas, A, B, and C. One is currently developed. A is developed as the parking area for Thor Labs. It's just kind of a large parking lot. B is the Miriam Gateway Apartments and Dunkin' Donuts. And C is basically Chunbo and then the KR Auto. And then there's, I think, a 2-family and maybe a single family or another 2-family next to it. So that's kind of the area, so that you have that in your mind as to what the redevelopment area is. It was zoned in 2010 for 15 units to the acre, along with a variety of other uses, mixed use included. And now the proposal is to increase it to the 20 units to the acre. The only area I think that is likely to potentially get developed would be sub-area A, where it's now a parking lot. But I would say there are a lot of constrictions on that site, because what we found out when they were doing the parking area project is that there are a lot of utility easements running across that property, which really shrunk the ability to do a footprint of a building on the property. So, I mean, could they potentially move the sewer lines and the water lines and all that and relocate the easements and create more area to develop? Possibly. But just keeping in mind that this area has limited ability to be redeveloped at this point.
Anybody from council have anything to add?
Just, you guys want to just reiterate for the record, at least for this ordinance, the reasons for rejecting the recommendation? Somebody put that on the record.
If he's bringing it up.
In summary, JP. Yeah.
So this was not specifically called out. It was the same general principles. There wasn't a specific item that was isolated or specific to this specific location. Thank you very much. But again, the general concerns included the water sewer infrastructure, which was discussed already. The transect zoning issue was more for special district 9, so not applicable here. This is also toward the center of town. The regional town designation density issue is the same. It's kind of the middle of town anyway. And the fourth was Patterson Ave. So this is strictly municipal water and sewer infrastructure requirement issues, and that was discussed previously.
Mhm.
As not having been.
We have no indication that there's any
The patch.
restrictions in the available water and sewer at this point.
Okay, if anybody has anything, anybody from the public?
No raise.
Take a motion to close that to the public.
So,
I'll second.
A motion from Councilwoman LaFois and a second from Councilwoman Teets. Roll.
Mr. Coos,
Yes?
Mrs. Diglio,
Yes.
Mrs. Teets,
Yes,
Mrs. LaFois,
yes,
Mayor Dixon.
Yes.
We just take the roll call on resolution 113-2026.
Mr. Coos,
Yes?
Mrs. Diglio,
Yes.
Mrs. Teets,
yes.
Mayor LaFois, Mrs. LaFois,
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes. Now we will need a motion to act on ordinance 2026-7.
so moved.
And second.
Motion from Councilwoman LaFois, second from Councilwoman Teets. Roll call.
Mr. Coos,
Yes?
Mrs. Diglio,
Yes.
Mrs. Teets,
Yes.
Mrs. LaFois,
Yes.
Mayor Dixon.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica. Next is ordinance 2026-8, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. We'll now open the hearing to the public. In person, on Zoom.
No raise.
Seeing none, I will close that portion to the public and need a motion to act on ordinance 2026-8.
I'll make the motion to act on ordinance 2026-8.
I'll second the motion.
Motion from Deputy Mayor Diglio and a second from Councilman Coos. Roll call.
Mr. Coos,
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio,
Yes.
Mrs. Teets,
Yes.
Mrs. LaFois,
Yes,
Mayor Dixon.
Yes. Next, we have an ordinance for introduction. It's ordinance 2026-9. Bond ordinance providing an appropriation of $3 million for various water meter replacements in and by the town of Newton in the county of Sussex, New Jersey, and authorizing the issuance of $3 million in bonds or notes of the town of Newton for financing part of the appropriation. I have a motion to introduce.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance 2026-9.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion from Councilwoman Teets and a second from Deputy Mayor Diglio. Roll call.
Mr. Coos,
Yes?
Mrs. Diglio,
Yes.
Mrs. Teets,
Yes.
Mrs. LaFois,
yes,
Mayor Dixon.
Yes.
The public hearing, public hearing on the above ordinance will be held on Monday, March 23rd at 7 PM or as soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard.
All right. Next for introduction is ordinance 2026-10. Bond ordinance providing an appropriation of $3 million for various water main replacements in and by the town of Newton in the county of Sussex, New Jersey, and authoring the issuance of $3 million bonds or notes of the town for financing part of the appropriation. Motion to introduce.
I'll offer ordinance 2026-10.
And I will second.
Motion from Councilwoman LaFois, second from Councilwoman Teets. Roll call.
Mr. Coos,
Yes.
Mrs. Diglio,
Yes.
Mrs. Teets,
Yes.
Mrs. LaFois,
Yes,
Mayor Dixon.
Yes.
And the public hearing on that ordinance will be held on Monday, March 23rd at 7 PM or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard.
All right. Next up is the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the town council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Mr. Russo.
Yes, sir. 105 is a resolution regarding small city citizen participation plan. 106 is our new policy for pennies. May they rest in peace. 107, disclosure contract for water treatment plant fire suppression repairs. 108, amends the housing element and fair share plan. 109 is a professional engineering award for bid and construction phase services, wastewater treatment plant filter rehab, 234,605 for PS&S. 110 is a grant through Jessica's office for CLG program to get the Spring Street Firehouse, also known as the Fire Museum. State and National Historic Register, that's our application. 114 and 115 relate to the ordinances, and 116 is bills and vouchers.
Any resolutions anybody would like to remove for discussion? Okay,
Seeing none, I'll offer the consent agenda, Mayor. As presented.
And I will second.
a motion from Councilman LaFois and a second from Councilwoman Teets. Roll call.
Mr. Coos?
Abstaining from number 15167. Yes, other ones?
Mrs. Diglio?
Abstaining from resolution 108, yes to everything else.
Mrs. Teets?
Yes.
Mrs. LaFois? Yes. Mayor Dixon?
Yes. We have no discussion, so we will move on and I will open this portion of the meeting to the public. Anybody wishes to comment, please step forward. All right, seeing none, we will close that portion of the meeting and move on to council manager comments. Does anybody have any further comments?
Just one quick ad for the high school is doing their musical the weekend before our next council meeting. So I have the dates and times somewhere. But it's the 20th and 21st, and the senior luncheon is on the 21st.
It's Shrek. I believe.
Shrek, yes.
Yeah.
No other comments except for to request a break during executive class.
All right. Next up, we have executive session, resolution 117-26, a resolution providing for a meeting not open to the public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-12, contract negotiations. We have a motion to enter executive.
I'll make a motion to enter executive session.
I will second the motion.
That is at 8:39.
Oh, yeah, I should have said that.
I have a motion from Councilwoman Teets and a second for Deputy Mayor Diglio. Roll call.
Mr. Coos?
I abstain.
Mrs. Diglio?
Yes.
Mrs. Teets?
Yes.
Mrs. LaFois? Yes. Mayor Dixon?
Yes.
Dominic, did you want to say anything for the record? There's no formal action, but I know Eric usually.
Yeah, I don't see anything else on the agenda or any resolutions pertaining to the contract negotiations, so there'll be no formal action taken at the conclusion of the executive session, just for the governing body to motion to adjourn the regular session will be the only action taken.